Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. We're going to do a quick study today, and I'm going to do it with the roses because I've had a lot of requests lately for some more of those roses, and people are having a hard time on it. One of the things that I've done for years and years is to do quick studies. They are ones that I won't concentrate on it being absolutely perfect. I love quick studies. Portrait artists do them a lot. They do initial setups, original, quick studies of a subject before they go into the full painting. And I started doing that with flowers and stuff like that as well. I was discussing it this morning over on our Facebook group, the Academies of Art, and you can go over there and join our group, and you can see some of the quick studies that I've painted before. All right, let's get into this. This is 11 by 14 panel, and I just gave it a coat of the Canvas Prep Medium. I'm going to use my colors that I normally use. These are Dave's favorite. These are the 10 colors. Everything I use, from the open medium to extender and everything, is in the video description. I know a lot of you ask. It's in the video description. Sometimes I forget it, so it's okay. But anyway, it's all there. I'll make sure of it. And what I'm going to do is just put on some color. I'm going to try to work with a large brush and work fairly quickly, but very simply, okay? So I'm going to put some color down first to work with, and I have to decide, do I want it to dry or do I want it to stay a little wet? And I think I'm going to want it to stay a little wet today. So I'm going to take some white down here, a little bit of blue. I want this slightly to the violet, so a little bit of violet, and a little bit of the burnt sienna, which will help tone it down so I get kind of a gray color. And it always surprises me, even though you saw me add just a tiny bit of stuff to that, and look how light that is. It always surprises me how powerful, really, it's the phthalo is that on this. I want this lighter. I want this up around an 8 or a 9 in the value scale. And I'll put my value scale right out here as well. So an 8 or 9 up here into the value scale for the background, because I'm going to do a darker flower, lighter background. I'm going to do some fun things. I love to play with the backgrounds. So I'm going to take my big brush and extender. So when I start a background, normally when I start a background, I start it with extender because it's thinner. And then this is the open medium, the Matisse Derivan open medium. And I'll finish that out, the painting, with the open medium. So I'm just going to put this down. And I love casual compositions. I really do. And so I'm just going to keep some of this very casual. So this is an 11 by 14 board. So I put it down. It's, not super heavy, but there's paint down on that surface, right? And we'll just push this up here to the side out of our way here for right now. And I want to work some other colors in here. Sometimes I use my knife. I love burnt sienna, and lately I've been, toning burnt sienna down, but I'm going to get a little more brave today and put some burnt sienna out. I want to get a bit more brave. I want to try some things. Let's have burnt sienna and a little bit of that red violet. I love that deep color that comes there from that. Now, we can soften all of this out. Let's get a little more red violet. I love the knife because I get all this broken stuff, right? And I like the broken stuff because I can soften it out. I don't have to leave it like that. I can soften it out. Let's get some of this out through here like that. And I told myself I want to do more with yellows and stuff as well. So let's get some of this yellow. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a rose right in here. And I'm going to let some of this just stay out here as really, really interesting backgrounds. That's what I want to do here. And impressionism. These impressionistic backgrounds here like that. So I'm probably going to add some yellow into my painting here. So I just play with the colors here. Play with that and get those colors on and play with them a bit. I love that. Now, I'm just going to take my big brush. Has a little bit of the blue in it. I'm just going to pinch wipe some of that moisture out of there and just pull through. And this I love this. See, this is right here. That's thicker paint going on to the thinner background. Okay, and you barely touch it. Now, there's a lot of paint here, so it will blur down, and I know. And I'm going to pull down so I get a dropping feeling to my composition here. But I like these broken edges here, so I kind of want to leave some of that there, right? And let's just, and kind of hold the big brush, big soft brush, very little pressure. Just pull down. I'm kind of like that right there, so I think I'll kind of avoid it a bit. Just super light pressure here. I'll drag some of that up here, softness up into this background. I love the movement of stuff, and I can add more in there. But right now, to add even more, it's really difficult because that's a lot of paint right there. That's why it moves so much on me. There's a lot of paint. You saw me put a lot of paint in there. And that's why it moved a lot on me. I might just come back and break some of that up a bit more. See, I love this kind of marks. I love those types of impressionism here, like this, taking that out. Pushing your knife slightly, taking that out, gives you a really unique look here. And I just love that. So we can wipe our knife, and I can push, and this is what I call burnishing it down, softening it down. So I can soften it down. If I wanted to pull it up higher, I can pull up, and I could slowly bring this up a little higher. Like that. This is a nice place right in here for us to do that rose. So we'll push a little bit of color right back in here, and we'll paint a smaller rose right in that area there. This will be a rose study, and then we'll put leaves and some other fun things in here. Let me soften through this right through there. Sometimes I like that, a little mark of that, so I got strong verticals. I like a bit of that horizontal in there. There's a little tiny natty fly that got in here. Yeah. And so let's do that. Now, so I'll go to, let's find my brush here. I buried it. My number 10, okay. I like my number 10. I'll paint this with the number 10. I'll take some of my red violet, maybe a little burnt sienna. Let's start right here into the very center of the rose. Now, I have a tendency to really grow roses quite big, so I'm not going to do that. And then I'm going to wipe my brush here, lift the pressure off, and send it to the back here. I just want to start to see the size of the rose. I'll bring light in from the top, and we'll pull down and give a nice deeper dark and shadows and bigger petals down here at the bottom. So let's just tap some of this around. So sometimes I do this. I just pick up the color and I'll just drop a dot in there, and then lift the pressure on your brush. Very light pressure, and move around here. Leave some little brush marks. That makes it look like little petals and stuff going on in there, right? And let's go a little red, a little bit of red violet maybe into here. We'll make a soft pink color here, real soft, maybe a bit of yellow oxide so it goes more of a peach color. Let's do that one. Let's see if that works back through here. That's kind of a pretty color here onto this side. And we'll just push that in here to the bottom here. And we'll do petals and stuff in just a minute. I'm looking at the size. So I'm really kind of looking the size of my rose over here. Right like that. Okay. And I've got to put the bowl in. That's our next thing, right? So a little red violet, a little bit of the quinacridone, some burnt sienna. We'll put the bowl in. So those of you that paint roses with me, we know we divide the rose up into 3 parts. We have the center circle, the second circle, which is the bottom of the bowl, and it gets lighter over here onto towards the light, because light's coming from this direction, and it'll get darker, deeper, darker down over here, and I'll actually physically just put on some more, just some marks here. of that deeper shadow onto that side here. There we go. And I haven't added any open medium, and you can see it's still staying wet. You get, you know, a good, depending upon how much extender you add, you get a good long working time. You really do. And I try to paint real quick studies, so, you know, I try, and you can see I'm using small little curved strokes here. This is just giving roundness to my rose. I want to make this a very casual impressionism, so it goes with some of this stuff out here. But I'm doing it always in kind of a curving motion here to follow the roundness of the bowl. The roundness of the bowl on the rose is the most important part of the rose, okay? If you lose that bowl, you lose your rose. There are three important parts. The darkness that belongs, let me just darken this down a little bit more. The darkness here that belongs down into the center throat of the rose, this starts it, and then it just starts spinning out here, right? That's the center part of the rose. So you can see it starts a rose already. But this is the shadow side, this is the light side. We don't want to drag a whole bunch of shadow up here, guys. Don't want to do it, okay? So, and because that will just destroy the look of our rose. So let's push this up a bit, and that'll be the indication of the front bowl of the rose. So we'll go a little lighter, and if I go to the light side, I always like to add a little yellow to it. So let's add a little white and yellow, and we'll come right over here, and we'll put down the light side of the rose here, pull down to, this makes the bowl. The little petals of the bowl there, see? And try not to stroke too many times. See that nice movement? You'll lose it, right? You'll lose that movement. You don't. Let me come right out here and we'll put a light in. See how I kind of twist my brush here? I'm going right up onto the chisel. So right in here is where, and let me just draw this in so we'll put it in. Because right in here is where that stem is. So I bring that petal right into that stem. And then I lift the pressure. Now, I don't go all the way around. And I had this discussion, didn't we, Dirk? Dirk was over here the other day painting. He's come so great on his roses. And he stopped by to say, and he was doing exactly what a lot of people do. When I do this, so let me stop you with some of this problem that's right here. I pull from here into that. And what I used to do years ago was start right up here and pull all the way around. I don't do that. I pull from the front, so I make that light stroke. Then I lift the pressure, and I go back, and then the shadow of that side of the petal takes over. So the light sits on the front of the rose, not in the back of the rose. Does that make sense? So maybe 2 or 3 strokes, and that's it. So I will come with the next petal. I will set the light to the front here, boom, and then just let it walk out there just like that. That's how I do it. So the light sits in the front. If I want to make that petal pop out a little bit more, I could, maybe a little more yellow, a little more white, and I stroke only the front of the rose, the front of that petal here. That's it. That's all it takes right there. And you get a beautiful rose that way. Don't do this. Don't reach all the way around and pull it all the way around. You're taking white to the back of the flower, and that's making your petals flat. Does that make sense? So we caught that the other day, and I thought the next time when I paint something here with you, we'd pull that out. Very important. Let me come right out here, and we'll reverse this. We'll use some shadow over here. We'll do a rose that's a little different. We'll pull the shadow right out here on this, and we'll blur this side out for the shadow here. Keep that softer. And sometimes, so with the shadows, I don't always like to paint thick. I like to paint thin. So I'm going to add some extender here, thin it out. Now I like this because I like my shadows, just like in landscapes, to be slightly transparent, to not have a tremendous amount of power, so I can take that light and blur off the edges and stuff like that. and create a different, kind of look to them. So I like the colors when I'm painting with shadows. I like the colors to be a little thinner, okay? Then we can lighten up a little bit, say right up in here, put a little light color, maybe a little deeper shadow. So anytime you're down into that shadow area down here, a little deeper shadow, but let's just put a little bit more right along in there, right in towards that bowl. Get that nice, deep, dark shadow. You can get it even darker with a touch of blue or even a tiny touch of green that I use sometime, but red violet by itself is really kind of nice. So I'll put that nice, deep shadow in there. And let's come out a little softer right up here, a little bit of light into that there, and maybe some soft pink to give it a edge there. But then we want to make sure we see the bowl, see? So then I'm making sure that I see the bowl, just a gentle lighting right there of the bowl coming down. Let's pick up a bit more of that shadow right up here, that shadow petal right up there. That's kind of pretty, okay? And let's drop in some more light right up here into the front. We'll drop in some more light right in there, and boom, right out. Sometimes I'll pull out, just to get a different look to the petal. But we want to make sure we preserve the bowl. So I just take my finger and I wipe some of that light right out of the bowl. If that's dry or if you don't have it there, just shoot in a little shadow right in there. Always put that in. Now I want to go back, touch a little more light and a little bit of yellow here, and we'll hit that front right there of that petal here. Pull that out just a bit. That's kind of pretty. Sometimes I will make, I don't always like super round petals, so I will, put bumps and stuff like that in them, And I want this a little lighter on one side, this side up over here. I want the light coming in here, so the light is going to hit this side here and then just fade away there on that rose. We can still have some nice, beautiful pinks, though. A little bit of red into that. We'll keep that nice and warm. Let's just put in a lighter little pink here, right in there. Maybe a little bit of the pink right in there. And I played around right there and lost my shadow. Not a big deal. We can just push it right back in. You got to make sure you always have that beautiful bowl shadow. That is what really makes the rose pretty. Right in there, see? That shadow is so important. Let's get a little clarity to some of that shadow. Right in there. See, so you start to get a real pretty little look to the rose. I'm going to take this shadow out a little further. I like the shadow going up against that light blue out here. And I like my petals to undulate just a bit. Okay, but that leaves room right in here for me to go with a slightly lighter petal. Not a super light petal, but a slightly lighter petal and a little bit of movement right there. Let's get brave. A little more yellow and a little more white here. And I want to make sure I have room for it here, so I'm just going to take that little bit of light right there. So see that shadow? That is right where I'm going to be putting that petal. And that's very important, because if I put light against light, then my petals have to keep getting more and more and more white, and the whole rose looks white and flat. So I've always got to make sure I have a little bit of shadow here that will make my petals show up. Just a little bit of it. That's all you need. Just a little bit of it. And if you don't have it, like say I started to stroke that and I lost part of it, drop back down to some of your pink. Come right back down in here and bring the bowl back in on it. And you'll get that back again. So, boom. Let's widen that out right here. So a little wider right there. Just a nice little marks. I love to get some of these marks. Let's reach up here and grab a little bit of light. Even though I do love that petal, I want a little more light on that side of the rose. So a little more light right in there. We love that little light right there. It's kind of pretty. A bit of that shadow right here, you can just softly restate it. Let's pull just a bit of this light right out here. Like that's just another petal right there. And don't forget, restate your shadow. Just pull that bowl just a little bit right there. You can wipe your brush soft. Get way back on your brush. This keeps the tip of the Fusion brush here soft. And then you can just do a little bit, just barely touch the surface manipulation of the colors there. Let's pick up a tiny edge of the pretty light color and push that right in here, right into that edge there. So a little bit of movement there on that side of the rose here. Some pretties, maybe a little bit of light right here, kind of closing up this edge of the rose here. Just a touch of the light to say there's a petal right out here. Maybe it's reaching up and touching the light, but make sure you always find that bowl. So let's bring that bowl right down in there. And see, I can just right between this dark petal and that bowl, I can just sneak in a little petal right there. Maybe we sneak in just a tiny, it has, just look at this, how tiny a paint I'm using. Little bit of paint because I'm in a real dark area and I have a light in my brush. I don't need very much in there to say that there's a light petal there. So let's restate our shadow again right in there. Coming right up, coming right out those petals, dropping that out there. Maybe even pulling it right out here, right out to the edge of this other petal and just leaving the movement there. There's 1,000 ways to stroke the rose. And let me tell you, I've done just quite a bit of them, different ways. I try not to set up a pattern in anything I stroke. So all my roses come out a little bit different, but you do get habits, and I have habits with them. And thank goodness a lot of you like my habits with them. But I do get habits with it. Let's take this, thin this shadow out a bit in my brush, and then I'm just going to pull the bottom of the bowl here. Just look, very light pressure, just to sink that bowl in there, and maybe touch more little light right in there, coming through right in there, and a little bit more light into the front of the rose here. Right like that. It's kind of a pretty little rose. Maybe a little light right there. I like it when I get, some of these, they look very impressionistic marks to them here. Very impressionistic marks. So let's lighten up a little bit more yellow. And let's lighten up this petal again one more time here. And let's do it again one more time here. Nice heavy color, nice heavy mark. I like that light. Let's put some right in here. Here we go. Sometimes you stop breathing a bit while you're doing this. Little bit of marks here. There we go. Pretty little petals. Here, let's add a touch of the light, maybe right back here. So there's a little bit of light coming right back here and down and in here. Maybe a few little marks, a few little petals there to say coming down in there. And some soft movement here. Let's yeah, push that center down in there just a bit. Now, this one right here closes off the rose a little bit too much, so I don't care for that. I've noticed that a little bit ago, but I don't always try to change it right away. So what I do is I poke that dark right back down in there and re-stroke around, which opens up my rose again. And then I'll this time put a light little petal a little bit further out here, like right in there, and maybe one right in here. That will suggest opening up the rose a little bit more there, like that. Okay, I like that one better. Let's put just a touch of light out here. Maybe just a little bit right there. I like that. So I'm always looking where the light is. Let's go a little bit more yellow and light. Some of this pink. But now I'm really white, almost pure white. And I'll get that right in there. Get that almost pure white right in there. And I like to do that. So you can see how it smears and stuff. There's a lot of paint built up on there now. And that's what I like here. Sometimes I will take, if I feel like the petal's too light, I will take just a bit of shadow right up the edge and shadow the top edge of the petal there. So I get a light edge and then goes to a little bit of shadow, and then the highlight picks back up again. So sometimes if I feel I got too much light, I like to do that. Just everybody's a little different and every rose is a little different. Let's put just a tiny bit of light right out here. Capture that bowl, the bottom of that bowl. Tiny, maybe the edge of a petal right here. Now across the front, you notice across the front, I will go across the front with the light, but not on the sides. The sides, the light stays out by the front edge, by the front of the rose, and then it dies, front of the rose, and dies as it goes around. So there's that rose there. That's really kind of pretty there. And let's take a little burnt sienna, maybe some of our greens, and some red violet. This will make more of a darker greenish brown. This is called negative painting. I use this sometimes to shape up petals and to give a little more contrast here to some areas of the flowers. And I love this. I'm going to draw that stem in there, push some color in there. I love to do that. Let's get some more burnt sienna in there. I love that darker burnt sienna happening right in there, right? Maybe a bit. So this will create a high contrast area right here. This is negative painting. So I'm painting the background, not the flower here. That looks pretty good. Sometimes I'll do it in reverse. So here was my light color. So maybe I take my light color and a little more light right out here. And I'll add a little bit of light contrast out through here. Some of those other colors right there. And that puts more light contrast towards the back of the flower here. And all these techniques, everything that I do here in painting these flowers, I use this on horses, I use this on landscapes, I use it all over my painting. I'm going to take a little bit of that green and stuff right in here, and that burnt sienna, and add that right here into this shadowy part of the rose, because that takes that background color into the rose, softens it out, does beautiful things there into that shadow side. Let's deepen that a little bit more. Burnt sienna and some of that red violet right in there. Get that nice deep shadow in there. Right in there. I like that. So see, I will come back when I paint something here several times, looking at it. Now, I like some of this. Let's go up here and because we had some yellows, let's model some yellows around. Matter of fact, what I'm going to do is go to my big brush here for a moment, and we're just going to model some yellows around here. I love to do this kind of stuff. Let's add some soft of that light color there and push that in. Get some of that softness. Very impressionistic. Right, let's take some yellow and some of that light soft. Very impressionistic out here. Right out here like that. And we'll got a squeaky in my chair. I had that the other day and I said, oh, I've got to fix that, and didn't do it. There we go. And so I have that now. We can just do a couple of real soft little blossoms here. Here. Just ideas of a couple soft little blossoms. Here. Color, highlight the light color here to the front. Softness there to the back. We'll build those a little bit more white, maybe. Actually add in some of this grade from the background so they're not quite so yellow, so they're more of a neutral color here. Softer color. Right up next to that rose. We call that formal in design. Very formal. And I'll paint them kind of quick here, guys. I want just some softness to them here. And so this one is probably a little too close, so I'll just move it out. And then you go, how do you do that stuff? You just paint over it. How do you do this in here? You pull out through this and soften that back out again. I love this kind of working, and I can fix the edge of this petal again too. And if I need to, I stroke the petal edge a little lighter again as well. But I don't think I need to. I'm just going to blur that out here. And there we go. A little bit of green in there. Some soft yellows here. I love these kinds of quick compositions like this. Just paint them real quick. I slowed down there on the rose to show you some of that problem, and it started reminding me of what Dirk came over and yeah, we were discussing that on the rose, and I was like, oh, I need to share that with you guys as well. So let's put just a bit of pink into them that causes them to go with the rose. It's that nice harmony thing, right? And let's put this larger petal right here. That's pretty nice edge. Nice, good, solid edge here. That gives an edge to the little blossom here. It's kind of pretty. And then we'll just do impressionism of it right out through here. Further out, we'll just do some impressionistic stuff here. Just quick brush marks. Just let it be quick brush marks fading away into our background. So we may have like a little idea of some of them out here. You could put a softer rose up there if you wanted. I think I'm going to take some of this light and this yellow and pop up this edge on this rose again right in there. That front edge right there. I like that. And as the rose starts to dry up, you can hit it with more color really easy and really get that light there into it. So we'll drop this into here, and boom, real quick right into there. Yeah, and I'm going to just bring out a couple petals here, right up like this, so that there's one little fly right there. It's Boy, there's flies here in Nebraska this summer have been terrible. Here, we'll put one in here, right in there. That's kind of neat. Maybe just some ideas of these were some back here, right? And we'll drop a little burnt sienna into the centers. That's kind of neat. A little burnt sienna. So I was going to do this. I started this all out with, I'm going to do a real quick composition, and then I slowed down to teach you about that rose, because I always think all your comments that you write on this channel are very important. I read every single one of them, okay? And so when you ask me questions and stuff, that all goes through my mind as I'm teaching here. So I started this video with one thing. I'm going to show you quick compositions, but then as I started to paint this rose, I thought, ooh, I better discuss what Dirk came over and showed, and so what problem he was having. And so, yeah, but I read all of your comments and stuff, and that is what teaches, I mean, that is what I do. So I'm taking a little yellow oxide and just tapping into the center here, and then I'll take a little Hansa, maybe a touch of white, and right where that light side of that petal is, hitting right there, I'll tap a little light. Don't go all the way around. You'll flatten it. So the light is coming right down through here, so I'll just tap a little light right there. We'll call that one done. And we got this beautiful light little composition here. We'll add a couple of little light leaves or something like that. But we'll let some of this, you know, like maybe we come back here, a little bit of our grade into some of this white, and we just give the impression of some back flowers. Maybe one little edge or something right here, so that they get a little idea that that's a flower back up there. A little yellow here, tiny bit of the burnt sienna, just a tiny bit, and that one just sits there in the back. Let's go pine green, a little bit of yellows. You can use Hansa if you want a nicer, brighter green here, which might be kind of nice right here. A little bit of the greens through here. I like them kind of thin. Sometimes I'll tone it down with just a bit of that burnt sienna, which just goes so well with this painting because burnt sienna is in all of this. And we'll just do a few emulations of leaves just to get the greens in there. We won't do anything spectacular, just quick little ideas of leaves and stuff like that. Nothing big here. Quick and easy. So we'll put let's get a little thicker here. Some casual looking little things here, out like that. Maybe a bit more to our stem. You can put out some ideas. Maybe a couple thorns sit right here. Maybe a couple little thorns here. Little edges. Nothing perfect. There, like that. And some of this green got a little squeaky in my chair. Sorry about that. A little bit of that. I love all that modeling of that color. You know, I like this kind of stuff just here. And little edges of that. So there, that's a a quicker little composition there. I mean, not quick, but gives you some ideas. Now, one of the things that I do like to do, and this one doesn't really need it. Let me just pop up this light right here a little bit more right there. I feel that just gives a better direction to those blossoms that are right there. I don't really care for them being almost exactly the same there, so maybe I'll pull the viewer's eye down here with like a turned one or something like that right down here. A little bit of green on the calyx. So I'm looking at all that stuff all the time here. Just something like that. That's better. It takes it away from that same right there. And maybe a bit of an edge right here would pull that back away as well. You control the viewer's eyes with edges and stuff. So, and we can always make the queen a little bit brighter right there and take that away with the queen here. Give her more power to this front petal, and that will take all of it away here. All of that, look away from all of that. Let's just blur that just a bit. Now, so I like that. Now, one of the things that I do like to do is take, something like this back, which was the background, anytime that it's a cool color and it's a pretty color, so it looks really nice in on the shadow side here. That's a bit bright right there. On the shadow side of your rose and flowers and stuff, some of that color. So some of this blues in here. Just quick little colors. And, a lot of times when I do quick compositions and, they're not in-depth paintings, I use like the cools like this as just really great ways to drive some more harmony within the painting without doing a whole lot of extra stuff to it. So here, let's just pull some of that out, some of those marks. But the drives harmony really fast. It gives something in common to all of your elements. It gives that blue in common with it, and it drives harmony really, really quickly. Let's just drop a bit of that shadowy color right there and restate maybe some of that blue in there. Restate this side here. A little bit more of an edge maybe. Even a touch of that pink in there doesn't hurt. There. A little shadow, a little bit of that. That looks pretty good in there like that. I might pull this back up here. A little light right here. Pull the viewer's eye up a little higher. And a little softness in that. There, you just tap and blur it all out. So it gives an overall softness to the flower, to the rose you're working through there. There's just a very, very different kind of composition for you. That really dried down, didn't it? And I could probably hit white. That's the one thing about acrylics that you have to remember with acrylics. It's the nature of the binder, the acrylic binders and stuff, the glue that holds everything together. They always dry a little darker, so you may have to come back and hit it a couple of times to get that lightness that you think you have there. The other thing that I do, and I've showed you in a few videos where I don't have to do that, is if I thicken up my white. I make my white quite a bit thicker, so when I'm applying the highlights and stuff, I'm applying them thicker, and then I don't have to usually come back onto something. But I've showed you that in other videos, and it's really kind of a fun little thing to do. So it works really well. But I think I'm going to take, I am just a little bothered by that right in there, so I'm just going to blur some of that color out here, like there's maybe another, I could either do it with leaves or something, but there's more movement back. That's better. So I take away some of that dark contrast, like there's something else back there. That's better. That sits more as a full bouquet. Those are the little things that just kind of bother me a bit, and so I get back in there and look at that. A little more textures. but it's fun little custom. Now, over on our other channel, over on the Paint It Simply channel, I'm going to do some real quick, smaller, quick compositions. Our goal, our goal is to paint them quicker, faster. Practice ones. This one's a nice soft one. I might use just a little bit more here down into that very center, and then I'm going to go oil this chair here. Add a little bit more dark right in there. Soft coming out just a bit, and that's a real pretty little thing. So there you guys go, okay? So yeah, and then I'll go over onto the other channel. If you haven't subscribed to our other channel, make sure you go over there and subscribe to that channel. That's the Paint It Simply channel, okay? And you know, make sure that you like these videos and stuff. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do some smaller composition, 11 by 14. I have a timber wolf, and he's a real light color timber wolf drawn up. I have another Western, a guy, I call it Packing Out, and I'm going to do it on a smaller one. I might do a study of it, smaller one with that. I have a couple Westerns actually drawn up, and a landscape, and I have a waterfall. I want to go paint Alberta Falls up in the Rocky Mountains. We're just a couple hours away from the Rocky Mountains and Alberta Falls. So I'm going to paint Alberta Falls as well. And I've got some great pictures and stuff of it. So we have a lot coming to the channels. And of course, we have to have another seascape for my seascape painters. So I try to paint a large variety of stuff. I love to paint anything that comes to mind. So, you know, you have ideas, give them to me. I have a commission to do as well of a husky dog for a family that lost their dog. So I'll be painting that one as well with you. I'll share everyone with that, and I'm going to try to capture the dog and the character of the dog. Looked like such a sweet dog. So we'll be doing that as well. And so a lot of fun things. I'm just going to add a little bit more light right in here, right back in here. I like that. And that's what we're going to call it. Okay. So I'll see you guys over on Paint It Simply channel. We'll go do another one over there. Quick one. Okay. All right. See you there.